But what was it like in that jury room? For the first time, we are hearing from one of the jurors, the jury foreman, speaking on Good Morning America. And how about this? We wondered, was Travis Alexander abusive toward Jodi Arias? Most important, what the jury think? Here's the foreman on Good Morning America.
I'm very sure in my own mind that she was mentally and verbally abused. Now, is that an excuse? Of course not. Does it factor into decisions that we make? It has to.
So how about that? Mentally and verbally abused. Let's bring in more of our experts. Great defense attorney Holly Hughes with us. How about that, Holly? So he believed that Travis mentally and verbally abused Jodi Arias.
Right. And it's interesting, Mike, because what we had in this trial that we don't normally see in a lot of trials is we actually had Travis's own words. We had those text messages. We had those emails. So the jury didn't have to necessarily rely on what Jodi was saying, because you notice that he did not say, we think she was physically abused. You know, the whole broken finger thing. We all were like, that just didn't happen. So it's interesting to me that they didn't really rely on Jodi's words to believe that she was abused. They read the words for themselves and they made a decision. Now, this is one juror. You know, maybe the other 11 didn't believe it, but this one juror, in reading those words, say, I interpret that to mean. So, you know, kudos to him for having the bravery to say that, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, you know, the person who was murdered is a saint, and I'm not picking on him. Everybody who speaks on his behalf says how wonderful he was and how fabulous he was, but this is a great example of how the jury system does work when you put actual evidence, not the words of a liar, in front of the jury, because nobody believes what Jodi says, but when you put actual evidence down in front of them and give them the opportunity, they can reach a decision. And they obviously reach different decisions, because you kind of heard what he said there. He said, did that factor into how we all decided? Yeah, it did.
Tanya Acker, so can we deduct from that potentially the text and the phone sex and maybe things that didn't make Travis Alexander look all that great, that could have saved her life at this point?
Well, I'm not sure about that, Mike. I mean, remember, we are past that phase. This jury already found that she was guilty of first-degree murder, that her crime was exceptionally cruel. So to some extent, this whole notion of, you know, was she acting in self-defense? Was there a reason for this crime? We're already past that point. I mean, one of the other things, and you didn't play this clip, but one of the other things that really stood out for me that the jury foreman said is that Jodi Arias did not look like a killer. And, you know, there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of commentary about how reluctant juries are to put women to death. I think of the last 8,000 or so death penalty cases that have been tried in the last 40 years. Only 2% of those cases have involved women being executed. So a lot of this really does have to do with gender. I do not think that juries like to put women, especially attractive, sad-faced, seemingly disturbed women, to death.